Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm really excited about today's guest, Robert from Canada. And I love his energy, his enthusiasm. And he is a life transforming trainer, author. He's got also designing an app, and he helps individuals with training, speaker development, living an empowered life. And it's going to be a great conversation about 6 steps to creating the life of your dreams. So, Robert, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to, assisting in any way I can from this cold climate of Canada that I'm coming in from.
So, I love setting the stage and just talking about your earlier experiences. I know you went through things and how they shaped you, and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up here in Alberta, which has a lot of commonalities to Texas where you live because we have oil. And when I was growing up, the things I was taught, hey, find a job, work hard, stay loyal, and that company should take care of you. And whether you like it or not, you do the work because it supports your family. Well, I quickly learned that that's not always the case, even if you work hard and stay loyal, because by the time I was 21, I was laid off from 3 different jobs. And thank goodness I learned this lesson way back then, Christopher, is that if I wanted any kind of control of my life, I had to be the one at the steering wheel. And out of necessity, because we were in the middle of an oil bust at the time, there was no work. So I decided to do something till I found a real job, and I started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. Went on from being a driver to a manager. My wife became my assistant. And what do? We started going into our programming, working hard. We started working open, close 7 days a week. And we were able to do that for about a year and a half. And we had the opportunity to become franchisees. We bought our first 2 stores with no money of our own. And we became franchisees for 9 years. Made pretty good money. But our mindset and our spending habits, we did something, Christopher, that probably no one you've ever met has ever done before. We started spending more money than we were earning. And I know that probably shocking your audience. No one's ever done that before. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we were over $150,000 in personal debt. Mm-hmm. And we were given tickets to a course that changed our life in 3 days. We learned why we're in debt. Second, we learned how to take responsibility. I was good at blaming others for the debt we were in. So we learned to take responsibility, and then we learned specific things we could do that if we didn't want to be in debt, how do we get out? Taking what we had learned and actually putting it into action, we were able to go from being that over $150,000 in personal debt to actually being completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32. Yeah. And my mind went, wow, that worked. If this much information could give me this great result, what would more learning do? And I became an avid student, learning from as many people as I could. And that's when I found my true passion. My true passion was to speak, to train. Because my belief was if I could help even one person do what my wife and I had done, going from financial struggle to freedom, and make it all worthwhile. And from there, for the last 22 years, I've been blessed to travel around the world, personally teach over 500,000 people in live trainings, 3 to 5 days long, and done over $100 million in sales during those trainings, and getting to live the life I love to do and watching people grow. So that's kind of been the short version of the story.
Yeah, I love that. In your story, how you're helping hundreds of thousands, millions of individuals really resonates. Tony Robbins doing the same thing. I'm sure you in your field. So one thing I really interesting is these overarching broad concepts, and the audience is really interested in the 4 currencies of life. What is that?
Well, so the 4 currencies is, the first one is what everybody thinks of: money. And when it comes to money, you can either have too much money, which is called affluent, or you can have too little money, which is poverty. Yeah. And so it's about having that balance, because when people, we all have a range that we live in. And if you're in that range, your life will flow well. You'll be able to hang on to the money, because we all understand it's one thing to earn the money, totally, completely different thing to hang on to it. And so when you have that affluent energy where you're making more money, but you haven't grown yourself to handle it, you notice you start doing weird things with money, losing money because you're just doing investments without properly doing your due diligence. You're spending on things you really don't need. Sure, you might want it, that instant gratification. And so the money never hangs around. And so that is just as bad as being like in poverty, where you're at the lower level where you can't afford what you need day to day. So the first currency is money itself.
Mhm.
The second currency is something we all have the exact same amount of, and that's the currency of time.
Uh-huh.
And the question is, are you being productive or are you just being busy? A lot of people, they say to me, Christopher, they go, but Robert, I'd love to do other things, but I'm just so busy, I don't have time. And I asked them, I said, okay, are you actually, really, most people are really good at being busy, but they don't know how to be that productive. And so I teach people to do what I call focus times, little breakouts, and start easy with 2 or 3 times in a week. Take 30 minutes, write it on your calendar and say, this is focus time to focus on this. And as an example, I'm writing my new book right now. I can come to my office and say, I'm going to write my book. 8 hours later, I'll be like, wow, man, I was so busy, but what did I actually do on the book? I didn't seem to get much done. What was I doing? Oh, I was on emails, social media, and I spent a little time on the book. So I was busy. But if I put it on my calendar and I say focus time, 30 minutes, depending on the research you go by, some research says people can at a maximum stay an hour focused on one thing. Others say up to a couple hours. I like to keep it shorter. I do 30-minute chunks. And when I come into my office, I start my timer, 30 minutes, because it forces me to get right productive. Because what will the mind do? It'll find things, oh, let me do this first. And then all of a sudden, because I'm on timer, like, oh, start writing the book. And here's a key on it. The moment the timer goes off, even if you're now full on flowing and doing great, stop. Because if you keep going, you've conditioned your mind to start late, don't worry about the time, and just keep going because now I'm in it. But if you stop when the timer sets to stop, the next time you do it, the moment you hit your timer, you're going to dive in and be more productive right off the bat, more focused. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So time is another big currency. And then a third currency that people have is the currency of like stardom, fame. And so either people are going for, they want that, oh, look at me, or it's like, you know what? I'm me, that's all I can be. And there's an interview that kind of really anchored this in for me years ago with Jennifer Lopez. They said to her, Jennifer, you're an amazing actress, you're an amazing singer, you're an amazing businesswoman. You've got all of that. But yet when you're at home, everything we hear is that you're a down-to-earth family person. How do you do that? And her currency of fame, she says, look, when I'm working, I'm singing, I'm acting, I'm doing business, I'm J-Lo. That's my persona. That's who I am. Said, but when I'm home, I'm just Jennifer. And when I heard this interview, I went, huh, because I travel all over the world. To give you an example, I just got back from doing 3-day events in Asia. I was in the Philippines 1 week, next week in Malaysia, next week in Thailand. On Tuesday, I had for 3 weeks in Europe. I come home for a week. Then I'm in Singapore for a week, 2 weeks in South Africa, home for a week. And then I'm in Spain for a week and Poland for a week. So in a 14-week period, I'm doing 11 full-on events in 9 different countries. And when I'm on stage in front of thousands of people, I'm Robert Raymond Riopel. I'm still me, but I'm Robert Raymond Riopel. I'm that persona of I'm a trainer. I'm transforming lives. But when I get home, I'm just Robert. And a running joke my wife and I have when I get home, she says, honey, you don't have any more assistants. Go take out the garbage. And I'm like, absolutely. It keeps me balanced that way, because if we get too caught up in fame, that's when all of a sudden ego drives further and we get really, we think we're all that in a bag of chips. No one is any better or any worse than anybody else. We're all just who we are. I believe the greatest gift anybody can give this planet is to be themselves. And when you do, Christopher, one of two things is going to happen. Either people are going to like you, which is great, or they're not going to like you, which is great. And this is coming from a reformed people pleaser. The energy, time, and that I wasted on trying to be someone else so people would like me. Oh my God, no wonder I was tired. No wonder I was exhausted. But today, now, when I'm just me, I'm always blown away at the people who are attracted to my energy and want to know me for me, not to be someone else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So fame is the third currency. And then the fourth currency is where I choose to spend most of my time now. And that is a currency of experience. I don't want to just live life. I want to experience life. And I'm talking the good, the bad, the ugly. If I'm not having a good time, I want to experience it. I don't want to bury it, discount it. This shouldn't be happening, going to the victim role. I want to experience, why am I going through this right now? And what lessons can I take from this? An example of that, have you ever heard the saying, Christopher, that says, everything happens for a reason? Have you heard that saying?
Yeah, I mean, yes, yes, I do believe that.
Did you know it's not the whole saying?
What do you mean?
That's only half the actual saying, but yet that's the part that everybody hears. And they wonder, and that's why, like, with your hesitation, is because your mind's going, should I believe it? Shouldn't I? Is this a trick question? And most people I ask, they go, absolutely, I believe it. But what they don't realize is a part was left out. The full saying is, everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve me.
Interesting.
And the whole concept, that's what allows me that no matter whether things are going great in my life, okay in my life, or they seem like a total disaster, that question comes in, everything happens for a reason, that reasons to serve me, that statement comes in, and it puts me into curiosity mode. Because now it's like, so why did this happen? And I'll never tell people that you'll always get the answer right away. Sometimes maybe it's 20 years later, and all of a sudden you get one of those one-handed claps, the aha moments of like, that's why I went through that all those years ago. Because of that, now I understand how to handle this situation. And this is why I tell people, especially your worst times in life, instead of beating yourselves up for the things that went wrong, let your wreckage be your resume. Let your pain that you've gone through be the path that you now have for helping other people. When you go through that everything happens for a reason, even our dark times. If you want to help other people, and especially I know because you like to teach trainers and help people become better speakers, don't just come up and go, hey, look how great my life is, and try to teach from that space. Be willing to be vulnerable to say, look, here was a terrible time in my life. Here's what I learned going through it. Here's how I got through it. Because I'm a big believer that if you could even help one person get through a pain quicker than you got through it, or to go through it without having to experience what you did, is that a win? And in my books, it is, which makes it the reason why you have to have that vulnerability and willingness. So those are the four. I had 5 fingers up. Those are the 4 currencies of life.
I know. The other question is, because I was talking to this other, just prior to you, he's a financial coach and advisor, and he's talking about using income and really focusing that income and really directing it. And you have this idea of, why is chaos not only normal but critical in life, and how do you harness it? And that's really fascinating to me, that concept.
Yeah, well, and that comes to, there's 4, I love things in 4s. I love acronyms. Yeah. And I call this my OPEN concept, OPEN. Yeah. And the O stands for the observation phase. When you go through the observation phase, and the P is for pamper, E is for energy. The N, I had to get a little creative on this one. It's actually the second letter of the word. Yeah. It's for unclutter, which is another word for chaos. People's lives, they resist it. And what I tell people, chaos is natural and chaos is necessity. So instead of resisting it, embrace it. Because what happens is chaos comes in when you're too comfortable. And if your comfort zone is like this big, and I don't know if people are listening or on video as well, but for the people just listening, I got my hands in a little box. If that's your comfort zone, once it's filled, it's not that more isn't coming your way. It's just once you're full, everything else is going other places. So chaos gets you uncomfortable, which is how you expand yourself. And so what you can do, most people, the reason they resist and hate chaos is because it turns them upside down, or it creates something terrible in their life. So instead of flicking, kind of putting the challenge to the universe of like, I don't want chaos, and goes, well, I'm going to come anyway, and giving something huge that maybe can end up creating a lot of pain, cooperate with chaos. And this is why I call it the unclutter phase, because the way you cooperate is you find things in chaos phase. This is the time to destroy things that aren't working in your life anymore. Maybe it's a business relationship or a personal relationship,
Yeah.
or destroy a thought that has not been supporting you. And the way you cooperate with it is, have you ever gone to your refrigerator, Christopher, and opened it up and went, ooh, I need to clean this thing out. There's too much garbage in here.
Yeah.
Well, voluntarily go in, open the door and say, you know what? I'm going to unclutter my fridge today.
Yeah.
Go to your closet. One of the practices I have is my wife and I go into our closet, and if there's things we haven't worn in 6 months, it comes out. It either gets donated, sold, or thrown away. Because the universe abhors a vacuum. When you unclutter, you're creating space, and the universe will come in to fill it with other things that you really want.
Yeah.
So that's how you cooperate with chaos, is you say, I'm going to voluntarily destroy something that I don't need or doesn't work anymore. That way the universe doesn't have to give you that, maybe for me, one of the things that it took me out years ago is I was resisting chaos, and I was overliving my passion. I was doing so much training. I was on the stages so much that I wasn't paying attention to my health, and I herniated a disc. And all of a sudden I ended up I was going to take a year off, but it turned into 3.5 years. And in that 3.5 years, because I went from overliving my passion to not living it at all, I had good reasons, back surgeries, I'm in pain, I'm going through recovery, all that stuff that was coming in, my old negative non-supportive habits came back in. Because I was out of the energy of growth. And so instead of waiting for something like that to happen to me again, I consistently and constantly cooperate with chaos. Because when you cooperate, it puts you back into the open phase of observation, which is, what do I really want in my life? What greater things can I have? And that's where more magic happens. So that's why you want to cooperate with the chaos.
Yeah, I love that. And I know where we we have kind of around 7 minutes left. The one thing is talking about is this idea that I think the 4 phases of life, that's really interesting. And also you also talk about people having less knowledge and experience as others, but they are more financially, they make more money. Because I know I know some of the smartest doctors, and they're really they're struggling. And I know people that understand money and they're wealthy. So talk about that.
Yeah, for me, it's about you having confidence, not arrogance, to say, you know what, here's where I'm at. And what's one more step I can take? A lot of people get that paralysis by analysis, especially very smart people. They overthink. So I live by the concept of get one done. So if I want my money to work harder for me, I'm going to get one investment done. So I see how it works. But Robert, what if I lose? Well, if you lose, and in any situation, whether you win or lose, I want you to ask 3 questions every time. First question is, what worked? And the key to this, Christopher, is take your emotion out of it. So when you say what worked, then you turn around and you go, okay, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked. No emotion, no attachment, just these are the things that worked. Second question, what did not work? And I do this when I'm doing things on my own or with teams. And again, you take the blame out, you take the justification. It's not like, well, because Christopher did this, that's why this didn't work. No, it's this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Great. Because that now allows you to answer the third question is, what can be done differently? And so let's take an investment. You get one done, you go in and maybe you got a little bit of success and you go, okay, what worked? I actually got a return on it. It worked out pretty well. I'm happy with the results. Great. What didn't work? Well, I didn't get the interest rate I thought I would get. It took a little bit longer than I anticipated it would, and it didn't go as smoothly as we thought. Great. What could you do different? More due diligence to fully understand the investment before getting into it. Making the decision quicker, because by waiting, we lost this much return. So no overthinking. Trust myself. So by doing those questions, it allows you then to take, again, the next step, and again, the next step, and again, the next step. So get one done. And that will put you, one of my mentors, I love what he says, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it.
How can people contact you and follow you and, reach out to you and, see you on stage?
Yeah, well, easiest way to follow me is just my fan page on Facebook. Just find, put my name in, Robert Raymond fan page. And that way is the best way to connect with me and follow me around the world. I don't do a ton of social media because I like my time off. I'll be honest with that, Christopher. I learned from overliving my passion not living it at all. Came back with a little balance. Because I like to take 6 months a year off as my own time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wish they could have that kind of time off. So you've got to be able to be willing to do what it takes to create the financial reality that allows you to do that. And that's what I love to show people how to do. So follow me on my fan page, reach out, ask questions if they have. I'm here to be of service in any way I can.
And for all the audience out there listening, Robert for coming on, and give him a like and follow and check out his events. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.